Hey Grant, the call button is off of the Obvio dashboard, so I'm gonna try to fix that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The area was closed.
Well, the button was annoying.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's you, Muddy.
Good morning, Grant.
Nice.
I guess good
Good morning.
afternoon, good evening. What time is it there?
9:30 p.m.
Okay, this is probably about as close as we're going to get to 13 and a half hours or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. Exactly. I just realized that my camera is wound up a bit hot. Let's have a look at that. Bit too far. There we go. All right. A few people coming in. Give people a few more minutes. It's always a little bit of a quieter start on the morning one. It's always fine. So we've got a few questions there already, Heather. Is that right?
Yes, we do. We
How
have quite a
exciting.
few.
We need to put a limit on how many questions Dan can ask.
I've been attending this. I kind of thought I'd absorbed everything, but turns out that when I actually try to do it, I know far less than I thought I did.
That's when the questions come. Oh, that's good. That's good to know that you're playing around with it now. So that's cool.
Yeah, my problem is I'm running behind, and so now I'm desperately trying to do things, and it's sort of typical.
Right. Look at me trying to.
And a lot of my questions are because of the marketplace and communications, because you guys have all of this incredible material up there about how things worked before, but I couldn't find as many answers about, okay, how does it work with this, and can you do this other thing? So many of them are about that.
Right. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, we're certainly working towards having more of the how-to videos and step walkthroughs and explanation videos and things. We're working on that at the moment, and particularly with the people that have been doing the free trial. We're doing some onboarding calls with those people, but we're also kind of using that opportunity to record some videos specifically on each of the different areas. And then we're just talking about how we can incorporate those directly into the interface so that we can make it super easy for you to find the help right where you're needing it, where you're clicking those buttons. So I think Heather, if we wait for Blue on the marketplace ones, that'll just be easier. Which I don't think it'll be too much longer. But I think we could get started. It's good to see a few extra people coming in. Stephanie, look at that. Look at the ceiling shot there. Look at that. You making some breakfast? Maybe. Nice. And a couple of extra names. But yeah, let's dive in, Heather.
Yeah, so someone wants to know, they think that another participant on Thursday's call said they get into TVE as part of our package. This would definitely be the free trial, I believe, that she'd be talking about. And then email would go out, but last night's deadline passed and I can't check the recording. I just wanted confirmation.
Yeah. So as far as Blue was saying, it does those it was part of the birthday free trial, and so they will get access to TVE. So yeah, there's been a few little email problems there, but I think we can pass on this person's name and make sure they're on that list, to ensure that they get what they need to. There was supposed to be an onboarding call last night, and that didn't happen. So that should be happening tonight. Blue will confirm that, but that's my understanding is it'll happen tonight. And that would be onboarding number 3. So we'll see. He'll be able to confirm that when he gets it. Sweet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then the next question was, we had the replays up on the update.obvio before. Now they're gone. I'm going to drop the link into the chat for anyone who wants the replays. This would be in the original email for the onboarding calls. So that's where you can find all the replays and the future ones to come.
Perfect.
Okay. And then getting on to Dan. So all I want people to do is check in is a signed release. If I turned off the password in tech check, but turned waiver on, will they be required to sign the release when they first try to sign in?
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, those we think of those the check-in process as step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1 would be password, step 2 would be the waiver, and step 3 would be tech check. Now, each of those are optional, and so if you disable them all, or you leave one of them, then it'll skip the ones that are disabled. So if you leave the waiver turned on, then the first thing that will happen for an attendee is they'll see that waiver, they'll have to sign it, and so then once they sign it, they'll go straight to the dashboard. So they'll skip create password, and they'll skip tech check, but they'll have to do the waiver. So yeah, if you just enable it in the top left hand corner, in the editor there's that little enable toggle. As long as you do that, then you'll be fine. Yeah. So you can include forms in the waiver step as well. So you can collect extra data, which is quite a sneaky way of doing it, because you really require them. You require them to step through that form, and if you made some fields required, then they would be required to fill out those forms in order to be able to get to the event. So it can be very helpful. Next question.
So how do I add a visibility rule to VIPs so that I can create a link to materials that only they can see? This is one of Dan's.
Yeah, good question. Dan, are you happy for me to share your event, for me to have a look at that one? Yep, got a nod there. Let me have a look at that then. And then I can show you on yours how that looks. Give me a moment, get that going. But this is great. This is a good fundamental question, because it's one of those really key things that we love to encourage people to do is have dynamic data, sort of things that the dashboard is different for different people based on whether they're ticket types, etc. So just before now I'm just looking at your attendees at the moment. It doesn't look like you don't have any extra data in there at the moment as far as groups.
Not yet, because that's one of the things I'm not clear on how to do.
Copy that. No worries. Okay, and so the data that you would have would be you'll have a collection of those attendees that would be VIP. Is that right?
I have a VIP ticket, and when I begin ticket sales, I'm assuming that there'll be a point in that process where I can tag them. I understand that sort of tagging process.
Yes.
But at this point, since I haven't done any of the ticket sales, I'm not clear. I reach a point in the things I'm supposed to be filling out, and it says visibility rules, and I don't know whether I'm supposed to do something there, wait, and things will become more apparent when I see tags.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, there's tags, and there's groups. And very, very quickly, the difference between tag and a group: tag is a one-off thing that can be used as a visibility rule to say this person has this specific tag. Groups can be used in the same way, but they also can be used where that data could be accessed. And so you could store particular data, say, for example, their favorite color. And now on the dashboard, you could have favorite color is red, whatever. So that's what group. With what you were talking about with VIP, it sounds like a tag will serve that purpose perfectly. So I'll show you now. I was looking at your attendees and not sharing all of your attendees' emails on the screen. Now I will look at the dashboard, and I can show you. Was there a particular thing that you already had set here, or are you thinking about something else that you were going to have for? Was it resources you're talking about?
Yeah, in the links for pre-event materials, there
Okay.
will be a link that only the VIPs would be able to get to.
Okay. So if I just duplicated that, and we put in VIP and we make this one for VIPs, then all we're going to do is go to rules. We're going to add a rule. We're going to be using a tag, and it needs to include VIP. I'm going to save that. Save that. And now we have a button here, links for VIP pre-event materials. And we double check that again when we look at rules. Component will only be visible when tags includes VIP. And so look at that. I feel clever because I just paused the share. I'm conscious of people's privacy, of their email addresses. So what I'm doing now, Dan, is I'm grabbing I'm going to open your attendee.
Mhm.
Let me come back to it looks like you've got exactly what we were talking about, where you've got the waiver step turned on that didn't have the password. And so you agree to that and you sign. And this will take us through. And now you're not set as a VIP. So we're only seeing this at the moment. So I'm going to go back. Give this a second. now I'm working hard to not show. I'll go to show your email.
Yeah, and you can show my email. That's fine.
Right. So I'm going to put this in now. So I'm putting in VIP. Remember, everyone, the trick is here because tags can actually include spaces. Then it needs to know when you've finished the tag, and the way it knows you've finished the tag is by pressing enter. When you press enter, that creates the tag, and now you save that. And now, when we give this a minute or so, this is going to update with that new the new data, and it will show the button because you're now tagged as VIP. So I'm going to get impatient and try refreshing. Sometimes that will help. There we go. So see that's now appearing for you.
Super.
So we can talk. I'm guessing you've got some questions about marketplace and the tickets, and we'll get Blue to step through on that in a moment with the marketplace, and you'll see with the ticket type where you can assign that tag. When someone purchases that ticket, they'll be automatically tagged with VIP, and then when they come to the dashboard, any materials or any content. So remember to if we look here quickly, we use it often for things like buttons. You might have a VIP lunch or a Q&A session that happens afterwards or something like that. Then you'd have a standard Zoom area that you've set up, and in exactly the same way we did that other button, you could do a button up here that was joining a particular Zoom area. You can also do it for blog posts. So in the blog post, visibility rules, and then add a rule. Same again, step through that, and you can have that all set up for a particular blog post. And that's a great way of doing it, to be able to have a specific welcome message for VIPs. And as we've seen some people do as well, they might put a YouTube video or like a particular welcome. You've got a short little video that you post you welcoming those VIPs. And you can then just create another video for your general admission as well, and have a welcome to them as well. So there's lots of that you can think about, not just downloading resources, but also blog posts and other buttons all across that could be targeted for your VIP attendees. So does that answer that, Dan? Do we? Can't hear Dan, but okay. I'm going to say he did. That does answer it. Okay, Heather.
So now that Blue's on, Dan does have a marketplace question. How do I get people to the marketplace shopping cart? I will be sending emails and I'll have ads in various online publications. Can the shopping cart function as a landing page in this small event? It's less than 50 people. Do I just connect it to its URL?
Yeah, so the shopping cart URL for your event is your event URL / registration. And there's a glaring problem with the marketplace feature, which is there's nowhere in the marketplace in the system that it tells you that. So this is our little secret. We don't like you to know how to use the platform that we create, apparently. But essentially, for this event, it would be update.obv.io/registration would be the actual URL that you would send your prospects or ads. Same thing, Dan, in your case, it's just going to be whatever your event URL is / registration. A couple things to note: if somebody is logged into your event and they go to the registration page, I believe it goes directly to it goes directly to the dashboard page. So if you're testing and you happen to be logged in to your dashboard and you go to the registration page, you may not see it properly. So just make sure you log out of the dashboard in order to properly see the registration page.
I think once again, we're going to assume that Dan thinks that was a great answer.
That's right. Very good.
So the next one from, oh, sorry.
I'm just saying it's interesting. He's unmuted, but not visible.
Yeah, we might have lost him.
Or not, yeah.
His mic is not.
Or better yet, his Mayat working rye. I like that.
So the next question from Dan is, I want my speakers to be able to attend the whole event and view the materials available to ticket holders and sign the release. Is it best to create a free ticket for them or provide another method of access?
Great question. So you can, of course, provide a free ticket for them, right? So you could create a speaker ticket inside of the marketplace system and make it a hidden ticket so it doesn't show up on the main landing page, and then give them the URL for that and have them sign up for the event. But in my experience, I'm going to take off my Obvio hat and just put on my Sage event management hat. In my experience, speakers generally don't do what you tell them to do. And if they have to take steps in order to access your event, they will undoubtedly lose the email, not take the steps, and on the day of the event, be all panicked about where to go and pretend like they've never gotten the information. That's just generally what speakers do. So what I would do if I was you, and I had a series of speakers and I wanted to give them access to the event, I would go to the attendees page and I would add them manually, and then grab the login URL for each speaker and email it to them. And just in all of my email communication, remember to access the event, click here, right? And give them that, that URL. And then in order for them to join you in Zoom, have them go through the dashboard as well, the exact same way. So that way they'll go through the check-in process and sign the waiver. So that's what I would do if I was you.
That's great.
The next-
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next one from Dan is, in the setup for broadcast, what goes in the name box at the top of the edit page?
Whatever you want. The name is an internal descriptor that only you see, right? So it's just a way for you to name the broadcast. So when you're looking at the list of broadcasts, you can see what's what at a glance, right? So it's like day one morning email reminder could be something that you do, like, you know, depending on what your naming convention is. But bottom line is that name is an internal item just for you to see, to allow you to identify your different broadcasts.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the last Dan question is, in attendees, I have a bunch of potential attendees to receive the pre-event broadcast. Will I be able to distinguish who has purchased a ticket, or do I need to switch over on my MailChimp account for marketing the event and just have the ticket holders and attendees?
Ask that question one more time.
Yes. In attendees, I have a bunch of potential attendees to receive the pre-event broadcast. Will I be able to distinguish who has purchased a ticket, or do I need to switch over to my MailChimp account for marketing the event and just have ticket holders and the attendees?
The second one, you have to switch over to your MailChimp account for marketing the event. Because what you've done, Dan, what it sounds like you've done is said, okay, I have these hypothetical, I have 1,000 people who are my prospects. I'm going to import them into Obvio as my attendees, and I'm going to send them an email inviting them to register, send them a link to the registration email. But now, if you then, which is not the intent of that system. The intent of the broadcast system and the attendee system is for you to be able to email people who have actually registered or claimed a ticket. Okay, so there is no way to identify prospects versus ticket holders inside of the broadcast system, and truthfully, even inside of Obvio, because Obvio assumes, and we're assuming, that everybody inside of your event is a ticket holder.
Excellent. Thank you. I was just trying to cheat and not have to learn MailChimp too, but thank you.
Yeah, no, I understand. And yes, that is just currently, that is not the way, that's not the, how do I say this? The broadcast system is not intended to be used for marketing purposes.
Yep. Yeah, I suspected as much as I tried to use it that way, that I'm not seeing how this would work. So, okay,
yeah,
thank you.
No, and there's something else for you to know that's really important. Generally speaking, marketing emails need to have a spam. There are spam rules around marketing emails, such as there has to be an unsubscribe feature from marketing emails. Obvio doesn't provide that, because with Obvio, the intention is, and the understanding is, that these people, these attendees inside of your system, have raised their hand and performed a transaction with you in order to say, yes, I'm coming to the event. Either I've purchased or I've opted in. And in those cases, now you're sending transactional emails to your attendees that essentially say, hey, the event is coming up, click here to join the event you already registered for. And in those instances, you don't need unsubscribe features, which is why there aren't unsubscribe options inside of the Obvio broadcast system. So there's the technical side of things, and then, you know, some of the things that you just have to be aware of as a business owner.
But I can, in using MailChimp, I've done one broadcast through MailChimp just to test those rules and make sure that I figure that part out. I can use that broadcast to go ahead and direct them to the ticket page as a landing page, instead of having to go through all the rest of it, have them do their transaction, and then communicate with them through Obvio? So it's a pretty
Yes.
simple use of MailChimp.
100%. Yeah, you basically import your prospects into MailChimp. You send out your emails through MailChimp and you send them to, like you said, the registration page. And then once they register, you have them receive the purchase confirmation email. And then you can send a pre-event broadcast to all of your attendees. And then during the event, you can send 3 broadcasts per day to all of your attendees.
Got it. Thank you both so much. This was very, very helpful.
Awesome. You're welcome.
And Blue in chat, Muddy posted a related question. If there is any data in attendee list to show who used Marketplace to buy a ticket and who did not come through the Marketplace.
There's a visual identifier currently, but there isn't an identifier from a filtration perspective that allows you to show just the Marketplace people. That's something that is on our list to add, but not until we make some significant changes to the page builder for Marketplace itself. Those are our first priority right now. Visually, there's a little shopping cart icon next to attendees who register using the Marketplace system. So when you have a mixed list of attendees, that's what you'll see.
Our next question is from Rex. He said, we had a couple of cases from yesterday's event where they were being kicked out even if the toggle is turned on for use on multiple devices.
Do we know what sort of experience that was? Like, as in what was happening? I guess that's the hard thing. Is Rex? Are you able to talk, Rex?
Yeah, here. So we haven't really tried it yesterday to check that on the back end if it's happening too. But we got a couple of reports that they're using the same link to multiple devices and they got automatically kicked out.
So the multiple devices feature, when turned off, won't actually kick them out of Zoom. It just won't let them join. Okay. So being kicked out of Zoom is another thing entirely and unrelated to the multiple devices checkbox. Now, what specifically? Usually those are user side or attendee side network problems or computer issues. Unless you have somebody, and I'm sure this isn't the case, but unless you have a co-host who's removing attendees, which is probably not the case, yep. Generally speaking, you don't get kicked out of Zoom for an action that you take unless you remove yourself from Zoom accidentally. And the only
IP issues.
It could be IP issues, but that comes back to network issues, right? Like their own computer fell off of their network internally. And not only could they not reach Zoom, but for a period of time, they couldn't reach the internet. And if that happens, you get booted out of Zoom. Every once in a while, in extremely rare cases, Zoom does have connectivity issues, but it's honestly, when they do, it's usually a news story. Like you can watch CNN at night and you'll hear about Zoom having an outage. There are also other things that myself and the Obvio team subscribe to for status updates about the platform itself, about Zoom. And I can tell you that I did not see anything that was connection related yesterday. And truthfully, I haven't seen anything that was at scale, a connection issue in about a month or so. And even then it was really brief. And prior to that, it was about 8 months prior to that. So Zoom has connectivity issues every once in a while, but it's usually brief. And it usually only affects a small subset of users. The other thing I'll tell you, just as an aside, generally speaking, enterprise users like we are connected to different servers from a Zoom perspective. So it is not uncommon for a lot of people to have connectivity issues with Zoom when there is one of these issues, and we don't experience it. So that's a plus for us. Not saying that that's the case all the time, but that has been my anecdotal experience. When I see connectivity issues from a Zoom perspective, I usually don't see them inside of Obvio.
Thank you
It's
so much.
always
That's it.
Yeah, it's always a hard one troubleshooting kind of individual problems that people have, and trying to see whether it is a widespread thing or whether it's just something for that individual and where that is. If you have an internet issue or something on the computer, Zoom can have an interesting experience sometimes where it will really it will look like you've been kicked out because it's trying to reestablish the connection, and it will eventually time out on that if you had just even an intermittent loss in your internet connection. It's one thing that could feel like you're being kicked out. But yeah, it's always a really tricky thing if you don't get an error message or a you're using multiple devices error, or whatever the error might be. So getting as much information from people is really helpful, and it's a tricky thing trying to manage help, because often on smaller events particularly, we don't have a team of people just standing by helping people. But it is definitely something worth considering, is having someone who is able to help people that are having problems. Once again, it's the type of thing we love about Tech Check. The day before, getting people checked in and they connect to Zoom. They do all that the day before. You do a quick hello, and that they're it's all working. So then that just helps relieve the next day. So anyway, there's a couple of ideas there. But anyway, we're sorry that they had that experience. Hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Thank you for your answers.
All right. Next question.
So, Clint, he said that he's having issues getting Slido to auto put names and questions. Can you please see where the break is?
Yes. Let me have a look. Clint. So, I assume is Clint on? Don't know that he's on. No. Okay. All right. Clint, can I share your screen? Yes, thank you. Okay, I'll do that. Great. Let's have a look. Username, first name, last name. That looks right to me. I'm gonna have another look at another event that I've got that I can compare it to. What you're seeing there, for those of you that are playing along at home, that you might not be interested in using Slido, but there are lots of different services that you might want to embed on your dashboard, and you want to hand some data to it, particularly first name, last name, and email. There's ways of doing that in the code itself, so that when it embeds, in this case, Slido is a question management system. And in this case, instead of you going to the dashboard and then having to log into the window of Slido, it already knows who you are because of the dashboard that it's on. And so then when you post a question, it will come up as your first name and last name, and you didn't need to then enter that again. It's already there. So store that away as something that's helpful, as something that you might think about in the future, is how you can use the data of the dashboard, and particularly the attendee data, and handing that off to a third-party service. And I'm just quickly going to open one of mine that I know that works. And while I'm doing that, I will just say to you, Clint, that be careful testing on an account where on a browser where you are already logged into Slido. That will have a different experience, of course, right? So it knows it knows that you are logged in as an admin, and you're also trying to send it and say, no, I'm this person's name. It will give a weird response to that. So it's really good to test in an incognito window or a totally different browser. Sometimes I just have a different browser that I've never logged into, and I go and open Firefox or Safari or whatever, another browser, and I'm able to then test it for sure where I know it's not logged in. And then the second thing I'd say about that in your testing is to not judge the experience by the dashboard editor, because the data that's being sent is not attendee data, so it's not going to get that same experience. And sometimes it gives a weird, it can get confused about who that user is, because we're trying to send it bracket first name, is what we're sending it in that instance. It's not replaced with the attendee data. So that's a couple of things to consider in your testing. And I'm just getting to a dashboard that I know was working correctly with Slido, and I think it was exactly the same. So username, yeah, user underscore name equals first name, last name. I think you've probably copied this. Yep, that's exactly right. So I would, my guess would be it's in your testing is just, it's got a little bit skewed with your login. And so have a play around with it, not logged in and on a clean browser, and try that. But everything looks good. So that's a good thing. All the best for that.
And right now, we don't have any additional questions that have come through the dashboard. Is there anyone on this call that has questions?
Go. Oh, Muddy got in there by a nose before Stephanie. Go, Muddy.
Oh, go ahead, Stephanie. I can certainly fill time with lots of good questions, but no, if Stephanie has something specific, let's let her take the floor first.
Sure.
So I'm going to finally play around with Obvio this weekend after yesterday, just all these people who are on it. I haven't done it, and I'm going to set it up. But I was wondering, so once I get people in there, is there a way to download attendees with an Excel or CSV file, or that's a separate somewhere?
No, that's exactly right. You can import your attendees. How many attendees will you have, do you suspect, or are you just testing?
I'm just testing. Let's try for 30.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be delighted if there's 50, but
30.
I'm just thinking maybe 30, 20.
50
I don't know.
it is. Let's call it 50.
50. Let's pray it's 50.
Yeah, so the CSV import is as simple as a first name, last name, so column for first name, column for last name, column for email.
Okay.
That's all it needs to
That's
be.
it.
And that will
No telephone number.
So if you wanted to import more data, like a group data, then the way that works is that we have tags and groups. You heard me talk about tags and groups before. So we always take our tag first. So when we're thinking of the columns, first name, last name, email, tag, and then groups. So however many groups you would like. So if you wanted to call one phone number or cell or whatever, then you can put that in, and that will and then have that in that column, and that will import as a group, and then you'll see all that data in there. Yeah, and then if there was anything else that was helpful, whether it was ticket type or if they're a VIP or things like that, you can do that. and if you wanted to capture anything else that's helpful for you to see, maybe it's their city and state, or something like that, that can be helpful for you to be able to see when you're looking at the attendees.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely have a little play around with that, and have a test event that you set up, and you can play around. You'll see it all come in, and then you could have your actual event could be another one. So you sort of have a little sandbox that you can play in for a little while, and know that there's no one's going to be seeing that work, but that you can play around.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All the best with that. Pray it's 150.
500.
Yeah, but that's right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Muddy?
Well, I saw Christine had a question in chat about how to stream events to Facebook. So that'd be a good one next.
Oh, look at you. Just doing little softballs through. So Facebook, when you look at in streaming, so there's when you are the host, and not a co-host, you have to be the host. You'll see that there is an option called live stream, and then this is enabled on all of the Obvio Zoom meetings, and there will be options for Facebook, for YouTube, and for custom. You can do a custom stream as well. When you do Facebook and you click on Facebook, it's going to open the Facebook page and ask you to be logged in and give us some details about the stream, and then you can start it there. And so there are some ways, and I was doing this for a little while with a custom details, and you can live stream off to a number of all sorts of different services, live streaming services, because we have the custom live stream server enabled. And with all of them, YouTube and Facebook and all of those, they can give you a stream ID and a URL to stream to, and you can use the custom details for that to make that work. But have a little play with going directly to Facebook and see how that goes. I've moved. I was doing on these calls, I was streaming into the Facebook group, and that was working quite well. There's a few different reasons for moving to YouTube, but the biggest one is that YouTube will take a 1080p. So we're live streaming from Zoom in 1080p, and YouTube receives that well and looks really, really good. And it's very quick on the being able to review and go rewind and go back over on Facebook, and it's a bit easier to find the videos for the history of them on YouTube as well. So that's why we've chosen it. It's the fact that we're live streaming now is not for people to watch live. It's all just about a very quick way to be able to get the replay. And so inevitably people, particularly on the Wednesday mornings when we do these calls, when the West Coast wakes up, they can go straight to YouTube and they can watch the live stream that happened only a little while ago. So that's the reason we do that. But yeah, have a little play. It's enabled on all the Zoom meetings, and you can live stream. One thing that I've done with Facebook a bit is I set up a group with just a handful of people for testing purposes, and then I can live stream to that group only. And now that means that only those people see it, and they can give me feedback, particularly when it's maybe confidential things that you're showing. You can stream only to a handful of people for testing. And then once you're happy, then you can go more public. So all the best with that. What else have we got?
Okay, I'm ready for my question now. So
All right.
I understand that you have built a question system to review that. And I remember on one of these calls talking about that there was something in the works to be able to provide essentially a real-time way to review responses from forms. I don't know if I'm remembering that exactly correctly, and I know the form system is super powerful and there's probably a lot to it. So I don't know. I know there must be a lot involved in that, but I'm just curious if you have any update on what you guys are thinking about or working about as far as being able to review form responses in a more real-time way.
Yeah, so the form response thing that you're talking about has been preliminarily designed from a graphic design perspective, but we have not transitioned it to the developers yet. There's still a few tweaks that need to be made on the design side of things. And then once it gets passed over to the developers, it probably will be fairly quick, but it is a pretty big, there's a form rewrite that needs to happen in order for this to actually take place. So while I would love to have it in place tomorrow, I think if we're all being realistic, it's probably a early third quarter feature that'll wind up happening, just knowing the other things that we currently have on our plate. The biggest feature upgrade that we're working on right now are upgrades to Marketplace and to the broadcast system. We're putting a fairly intense focus on that right now, because we want to get those two products out of beta and into everybody's hands. But there are still some usability issues with both of those things that we want to get resolved before we do that. So that's, internally, kind of giving you a little bit more information than you need to know, but that's what we tend to do on these calls. That's where our primary focus is right now.
Well, that's great. And I'll share for the benefit of folks who haven't seen this or used this yet, that this came up in a recent conversation where someone was asking whether the forms could be used kind of for a live polling feature. And I did point out to them, and we went and tested it, that you actually have enabled the polls, and with a recent update because they wanted to show the results on screen. And of course it would take a little bit to do that. Could be done, but take a little bit. So we tested, you do have the forms installed. So when you log in from the back end, you have access to the polling tool. I mean, you have access to polls that you would create once the meeting is up and running. So they could start the meeting early, click the poll button, create a poll, and then it would be ready to launch. And then the other thing to note is that once you have done a poll in a meeting, you can download the results right from within the meeting. So I just wanted to point that out, because in the past, a lot of ways you would interact with poll would be through the web portal, but you can do all of that in the meeting itself. And I'm grateful that you guys have that enabled. So just wanted to point that out for those that might need that feature.
Yeah, that's great, and you're absolutely right. We had I had a need to use polls at one point within Zoom, and it really was we had to stand on one leg and use one eye to be able to use polls. It was really tricky, and depending on hosts and co-hosts and things, and they've really tidied that up.
Sorry, my dog is going nuts and I forgot to mute myself. I apologize.
All right. I thought we were all in trouble for a moment. But one thing we mentioned, I guess, around polling or some of those Zoom features is wherever possible, tying back to the dashboard is really helpful. And I know you know this, buddy. But it helps to get the engagement back to the dashboard and ties it, and then getting used to using the dashboard. And of course, if you're using a form on the dashboard, then you can tie points to that as well, and that helps when post, when they submit their form, then they'll see that they get points and things. And so that's just some cool little engagement that they get. And eventually, yes, it would be great for us to be able to have some live sort of results on those that can be used by our hosts. And the big thing for us on that is that it scales beyond one meeting. And so now it scales to thousands of people, and we can.
Well, and you also don't
system.
have to be in the meeting in order to take part in the question, right? So if it's a poll that you want everybody to answer at your event, regardless of whether or not they hear the question presented from stage, you can put a lot more context around it when it's embedded into a blog post.
Right.
And getting the answer in real time. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit involved, but I mean,
using Zapier and such.
Yeah, like 5 minutes, and you can have poll results in a Google Sheet and a graph that you can then, share your screen or display in real time to your attendees, and they can even see that you can share your screen and you can see the responses as they come in. So, and then, to Grant's point, the points is really nice. And then it's really easy because, most of us in real time are probably going to forget to download the results of that form before we end the meeting, right? Especially if we do it in the moment, and then the meeting's going to end, and then you don't have access to those results anymore. And then we're all going to be like, but not so much with forms, because then you can just go forms and download your results and have them nice and easy. So there's a little bit of pain, I understand, on the front end. You have to have Zapier, number one. And then number two, you have to create the Zap and webhook the data over from the form. But it's a pretty easy process once you know how to do it.
Still no more questions there. Oh, Corinne. Hi there. Oh, a little mute war there, I think. Go again.
Sorry, I haven't been in
Okay.
Obvio for a while, and I have a conference coming up tomorrow that I'm using it for. And for some strange reason, and I don't know, but my the area where one would see the right hand, can I just share my screen rather than try and explain it? Hold on a second.
Go for it.
So, hang on. Let's get rid of this. Get rid of this. Oops. I'm in the wrong place. There we go. So, this area here, oh my God, I've got so many things in the way. This area is just showing one big blue blob, and I don't know what I've done wrong. If I go in here, which I can't for some reason. I'm frozen over here, but
Yeah, looks like something's frozen. Yeah.
what is happening? But anyway, so what could I possibly have done wrong here to make this not work or show up rather?
Yeah, it could be disabled. Let's have a look. Let me see here. I might try to have a look at that. It seems like, yeah, your computer's having a little hard time there.
Yes, it is. I don't know what's going on.
Let me see.
Here, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to stop share. Go ahead.
So I think this is your event, right? I'm in the right
Yes.
spot. Okay.
Mhm.
So are you talking about when you actually go live?
Right.
It just shows like this?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
what's going
What did I
on
do?
is if you hover over the agenda and you go into the gear, you'll notice it's disabled.
Ah, jeez. Good Lord.
So if we
Okay.
just, I'll enable it for you, and then
Great.
resources incidentally is
It's
enabled.
enabled. Yeah, I just have to
But-
add this. Mhm.
Okay, cool. So now when you turn it on,
Yay.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm not, is resources not showing because
It's empty.
Because there's
is that
nothing
the
in
reason?
there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that that happened.
So once I
Oh.
put,
Is that? Yeah, look at that. There you go. And remove. There you go. Yeah, so once you add resources, it'll show up, and
excellent.
and there you go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was freaking out this morning.
Yeah, and a couple of other things that there are some minor changes to the sidebar that
Oh,
may
who
or
are
may
you telling? I was in there last night thinking, what has happened? But it's okay. I like it. Yeah.
Cool. One of the changes to the sidebar is the separator area right here. Separator color, separator thickness, as well as separator style has been updated a little bit. So
Okay.
right now you have a yellow background or yellow border
Right.
around, right? So you could, if you wanted to, make the separator the same color. Or, you know, sometimes people actually don't like the separator, and something that we added recently was none as an option.
Perfect. Mhm.
And then when you do that, of course, when you go to show the sidebar, the separator does not show because there's none there.
Right.
So those are just a couple of minor tweaks that we've made recently to the to that sidebar area.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Something else that just as a note,
Yes.
you have some weird hover settings going on in your buttons. So you may want to just go through and this is a result of some new settings in the main navigation buttons, and you
Right.
probably duplicated this event.
I did.
Yeah. So your hover color is set to white, and your background hover color is also set to white. So when these buttons up at the top, when you
see. Right. Oh my God.
So
okay.
An easy fix is just to uncheck the customize hover background, and now it'll just lighten slightly, right? So you just have to go through and do that for each of those. You can also change your background to a different color if you wanted to, but now that'll work. And then you have the same problem down here because the hover color is not the same as the text color. So so this you're going to have to change in two areas because your background color is white. So I would uncheck customize, and then I would copy and paste so that your text hover color is the same. So you see there's that solves that issue.
Yeah.
The flip side to it, if you wanted to get creative, is you may want to leave it as white for your text hover color, but change your background color hover color to the orange. So when you hover over them, the button reverses.
That's nicer, actually. That's nicer. I like that.
So then it's just a matter of copying this color and changing your hover color like this.
Right.
So pretty here. I'm just doing this for you because I can't help myself. So
well,
there you
I
go.
appreciate it, Blue. I like it.
Welcome.
That's
You're
great.
welcome.
Thank you.
And you've kind of done something a little different down here, right? You've got a black background for your CFPs, but there you go. Just a couple of things to keep an eye on.
Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah. Nice. That was it. I still
was-
love
that
I
was
still
easy.
love the tool, and I like that you are ever evolving it and changing and making it cooler.
Well, you want to see something really cool that is slowly coming into the platform? This is really
Yeah.
exciting. I'm super excited about this. I'm not going to lie. So we were having a conversation a couple weeks ago on a call, and somebody had noticed that if you go into a blog post and you start typing, right? And then you click out of the blog post. When you click out of the blog post, it doesn't save because it's like you're canceling, right? So, I can do that as an example here. Like if I change resources and I click out, it just doesn't save. In order to change resources and actually have it save, you have to click save, right? Which is understandable, but there's this, sometimes, you have accidental button clicks. And when you have those accidental button clicks, if you're in the middle of something like a broadcast, which is how the conversation came about, or you're writing a long blog post and you click out, then you lose the work that you've done. So we've made it, we're going through the entire platform to make the following change. When you go in and as soon as you start editing, so if I change this to my posts instead of my post, if I click out, you'll notice that there's now this little thing that says, hey, do you want to save your updates? Closing this window without saving will cause you to lose the changes you've made. Would you like to save your changes or discard them? And then you can save or discard right from that. So if I click save, if I click save, it changes to my posts. Or if I click discard, it just doesn't change them. So that's it's a small change, but a pretty significant one. There are still a couple of areas on the dashboard editor that are being updated, but if you go to speakers as an example, and you click on one of your speakers and you try and make a change and you click out, you'll see that that is already in place, as well as pretty much every page other than the actual dashboard editor. So the dashboard editor is in the process of being updated to include those same changes. The first thing that we worked on was blog posts. So that's already in place. If you make a change to your blog post and you click out accidentally, the system will now say, hey, do you want to save your changes? Which is a really big upgrade.
Yeah, that is huge. Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And hopefully by next week, it'll be everywhere.
Is there anyone else on this call that has any questions?
So I'm not going to ask a question, but I'm going to confirm something. So last fall, I used the dashboard for all the sessions. I opened rooms and I didn't close them. So the afternoon was a hot mess. I thought I'd broken Obvio. So once a session is over, close the room, right? So I don't, because there's a maximum amount of, what was it? Rooms that can be open at the same time.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, there's a maximum amount of rooms that can be open simultaneously, and that number is 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely, that hasn't changed. You definitely want to make sure that you turn off your rooms when you're not using them, especially if you're going to be trying to open different rooms.
Yeah. Because I need 3 of them open at the same time. And I used up my 3, one was fine. And then I was like, what is happening? And so, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that is definitely something that you want to be aware of. And we don't actually, there is a process that automatically turns off rooms, but it doesn't happen regularly. meaning it's not like it happens every 2 minutes or so. It's something that I believe once a day at like midnight Eastern time.
Okay.
The system does a check to see what rooms are open but don't have
Mhm.
any attendees in them. In other words, they should be
Mm.
closed, and it
Right.
automatically closes them in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So overnight, you won't have that problem. But if in the middle of the day you're trying to do that, then yes,
Yeah.
it will be an issue.
So do you think that there's, I don't know if this could be a feature, but could there be something that allows you to say, close this room after an hour or 2 hours or something like it?
There
I know.
could.
I'm
So
asking a lot.
yeah, no. So I'm with Muddy on this. Muddy's thinking to himself, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger," and he's
Yeah, but
probably
you-
thinking that for the same reason I am, which is
You don't want something to close in the middle of what you're doing.
exactly because you know, for the longest time, Kareen, we actually resisted the ability to time dashboard elements, right? Like to turn them on and off. And
Right.
you know, you may, I don't remember when the last time you were here was, but if you go to your dashboard and you look at a button and you go to
Mhm.
rules, you'll now see that there's show from and show until dates. So you can actually you can time almost every element on your dashboard to turn on and off at specific times. And we always resisted that because we're live event people. And while conceptually, I love the idea of not having to touch my dashboard during my event, the reality is I know that if I get on stage and I want something to happen at 10:15 and I get in the middle of a conversation or I start teaching something and I don't actually present that thing until, you know, 10:20, it throws things off a little bit. So we'd always resisted that for the longest time. That is now in place though, so you can do it. But the worst thing that happens with this sort of timing is a blog post appears or disappears, or a button shows up or doesn't show up. If we add that kind of timing to Zoom and we turn off the room, now all of a sudden your attendees get kicked out of the room. That's not good. So when we talk about worst case scenario, like what happens if your timing is off? Well, for a button or a dashboard element, it's not the end of the world. But if you run long in your event and you set it to time and then it turns off, that's not good.
Fair
Like,
point.
there's no way where that's a good thing that happens.
You're right. Fair point.
Yeah, and I think there's a philosophy too that I like to live by with the digital events. That is that we're not limited by time and space, and so that your event can ebb and flow depending on how it's all going. And a good session could go a little bit long, which might push your lunch break out, which means your sponsor's booth or something is going to happen at a different time. And I think that's all okay. And I actually think that there's an endearing or a community building aspect to that. And there is a fine line between being disorganized and being flexible. And I think when we run events that we have planned really well, and there is some flexibility in there to extend a session a little or pull back on a session, or throw a break in because it feels like it, or that sort of thing. I think that works really well with the type of platform that we have. We don't have a ballroom that we've got to get out of, or the banquet staff haven't set up lunch and we've got to get out there, like and so I think it's helpful to think about that so that you're not heavily locking everything down to the clock, because there's a level of anxiety that comes with that as well when there just doesn't need to be.
Fair. Thank you.
But we're not always trying to use excuses like that so that we don't have to put a feature in.
I get it. Thanks. Thanks for explaining though. I get it.
Yeah. Nice.
I saw in the
else?
chat,
I think s-
Pam wanted an update on the TVE event info.
What info are you looking for, Pam? The date is May 11th through the 13th. You can register at https://sagehub.com. It's $97 to attend, $197 to upgrade if you want to all access. And it's going to be awesome as always.
Number 6.
It is the 6th. Yeah,
That's
TVE
impressive.
6.
It's great.
Feels like at some point we have to rename this sucker.
I like it. TV 300 and what do you do?
It's almost like the Fast and Furious movies. They just keep
Yeah.
adding all the to them.
Yes. Yeah, keep the numbers,
Great
but you
question.
change the words around.
Right.
Mm.
Muddy, there's going to be an email that goes out to those people about claiming their ticket there for sure.
Yeah, some folks had just mentioned they hadn't seen any info yet on that, so. that's
Yeah,
all
no,
up to them.
that's on our list to do. We had to build a page to ask for a shipping address, as you can imagine, for our fancy boxes. And those will be going. They're going out this week. I don't know when, but I know they're going out this week. Yeah, the email with the information. Cool.
All right.
Any other questions? Or are we calling it a day, folks? What's going on?
I just want to say I used Obvio last week for the first time. It was awesome. And I definitely I have so many other things I got to figure out, but now I see it's funny because I've been in the program for a year and I'm like, oh, whoa, this is amazing. So I finally I think the only way to really figure it out is just by doing an event and using Obvio and then seeing it in action. And one thing I snagged on, which I think lost me some web, but it's okay, because I'm gonna do more webinars, is I was like, the room didn't open at 12 o'clock. And I was like, I thought I had turned it on. So I think one thing, if I could give feedback, that turning on the room, just there's something that's not counterintuitive about it. But even though it's very simple, because I see how simple it is, but once I got the room turned on by 12:05, I was like, why is nobody showing up? I was like, oh no, the room's not open. So so that was good. But then I had a couple people come in once I got the room turned on. And yeah, it's for my events too, one of my biggest pain points using I use the $100 Zoom account. I can't mute and unmute my audiences. So it's really amazing especially when I'm working with the kids they're not able to find the mute button. So that was a really big deal thing to be able to incorporate into my shows and my events. So I just want to say the snowboarding metaphor is absolutely on point with Obvio. Once you figure it out, then you're like, oh, that's pretty awesome. It's very, very cool. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we think so. And interestingly, Matt, I agree with you that it's not necessarily super intuitive that all of those things have to happen. And all the way down to one of it's a little simple tweak, but the open toggle, the room is an open close toggle and the area is an open close toggle, and all it says is open or close. It doesn't say area closed or room closed. And that probably minor distinction would probably be pretty major. There's also a video that was recorded last Thursday as part of the new onboarding sequence that we're working on that has a little video that actually defines the entire page, which is what you guys are going to start seeing in the coming weeks are little tooltips or little areas inside of the platform where you can hover over like a little question. We haven't decided if it's a question mark or an I, but when you click on that little button, a little video pops up that is like a 2 to 4 minute long video that explains the page or the thing that you're looking at. So there's a lot of that coming in the coming weeks and months as well.
I know Grant's like, oh man, it's such a simple, how could like, but I'm telling, it is simple. The platform is very simple. It just, I just still run into some snags as a first time user, but like, it's very simple. It's very, very simple.
No, yeah, no, we're only talking about it today. We're talking about that aspect of just getting going, and it's one of those things on event day. Something that we're sort of working on is a checklist. You know, it's kind of an event day checklist. Here's the things you need to think of. Have you done this? Have you done this? And now you're ready to go live. Okay, now open this. You know, just something that steps you through and things to consider. And I've been thinking about it with even the -1, you know, day -1. What are some things to make sure, you know, check your dashboard, make sure all these things are all working, and do a couple of checks with some attendees. So it's just some things, but we totally acknowledge that there are certain things in the platform that are designed specifically to scale, you know, in huge events, and some of those things don't make as much sense when you're just doing a single room event. And so, yeah, we need to find the balance there, as to making that a bit easier. But we'll tackle it from a few different angles, I think. Bit better documentation, some videos, and maybe some interface redesigns, you know, or adjustments, tweaks to make that a bit more intuitive. As Blue was saying, to even just an extra word here or there may make all the difference to make it clearer. So we definitely hear it. We're not just going to sit here and say, no, you're all wrong. It's really easy. It's not. So there is some complexity there. So
I love the checklist idea. Thank you.
okay, yeah, good. Okay, got to vote for that. Henrik is here. How are you, sir?
Good evening, sir. Quick question. Obviously, for the big Tony Robbins style events, I absolutely understand why the event can only be opened at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or whatever. But for, you know, guys like us that are putting on small events, what I've just done, because there's obviously so much pressure of 1,000 things that you need to do before an event, I just open the event like several days beforehand, and you know, just as the event under the event settings itself, so that I can test it properly. I'm not limited to just testing these things. Is there any reason why I shouldn't do that, or any kind of best practices on that? Because I just noticed I just take all that stress off. I open the event a week before the time. I don't obviously open the main stage, but you know, that just helps me a lot. Any thoughts on that, Grant?
I was going to see if Blue was going to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening. I'm happy to chime in. I do the same thing. How about that? When we're running an event, I usually set the event days to be 1 or 2 days before the event, and to end 1 or 2 days after the event, which allows me to, and I include tech check days in that, right? So if I have 2 days of tech check, I'll have, before the event itself actually starts, I'll set my start date to a couple days before tech check. So that way I can, you know, just, I'm good to go. The other thing that I'll say is we don't actually ever turn off events unless a client specifically asks for it. We don't really bother with turning on or off the event in terms of the toggle to enable or disable it. Now, from a marketing perspective, it is nice to, if you want your attendees to be able to, register for the next event from the current, if they go to try and visit the dashboard for the current event, you can turn off the event, and then your offline settings can be redirected automatically to another website. So you could, we do have, I think, 1 or 2 clients who actually use that, where, after the event, we turn off their dashboard, and the dashboard URL then redirects to either a waiting list or like an early bird ticket price sales page or something along those lines. But if a client doesn't have that specifically, it's really rare that we turn off the dashboard, because there's no downside. If a client, in my mind, if a TVE attendee wants to go look at the TVE dashboard, 3 months after they access or after they left the event, there's nothing on there that is critically important in either direction. And it just means they're interested. So yeah, that's kind of.
It is nice being able to redirect the closed event, especially now that I've started experimenting with the sign up version, where you can actually sign up through Obvio, because it's really simple. And I find by taking those barriers away, your list is actually building quite nicely. So just what I'm doing now, when my event is closed, I forward to my little coffee shop thing where you can hit the sign up for the first time visitor link, quickly put in your email. And I've noticed that's adding about, several hundred people a week to my list, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and make sure that if you're doing that, one of the things I really like about that process is having the welcome email set up, because the welcome email gets automatically sent to people who sign up from the sign up page. So for everybody else who's listening, just keep in mind that the sign up feature is really only usable for free events. Because if you have a paid event, you don't want the sign up feature on your login page, because that will then allow people to sign up for free. So it's really, the sign up feature is really only meant for free events.
Works very, very nicely.
Yeah, thank you, Henrik. Grant, I wonder if we should contemplate having the sign up feature. It'd be interesting if when you enable the sign up feature and you have Marketplace enabled for that event, that the sign up feature redirects to the Marketplace page, or have an option to, right? So if somebody lands on the login page, that'd be interesting.
Then you can have then you have a free ticket in the Marketplace.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like,
Or
especially for people
either.
who, you could have a free ticket in the Marketplace. I was actually thinking for people who have paid events in the Marketplace.
You mean if Marketplace is enabled, then have sign up redirect there. Yeah. That's cool. There's a problem when Blue and I get together and we just start thinking about things that we can do. Our developers hate it when we're on calls and we go back and forth on, why don't we do this? Oh, it'd be cool if we did this. Henrik, just a couple of things. We're in a bit of a transition phase with the event start and end times, right? Because now we're in the creditless system. Now it's unlimited events for people. That doesn't mean quite as much, the start and end dates. It does still enable whether Zoom works or not. And so to your point, you're starting it a couple of days early so you can test Zoom, and all of that just works easily. The thing that we're starting to miss now is just from a resources management point of view. We really like to be able to see when is it that your event actually is happening? And so that's something that we need to fix along the way here. And I think one of those things might be that we're saying, when's your actual event? It doesn't affect anything other than it's telling us, so that we can track that in our system, so that we know how many virtual seats to put out for people, to make sure that we've got all that working. So now we're in a little bit of no man's land where we've got these 6-day events that are actually only a 2-day event or something. And so some of that data is lost a bit. But and the second thing I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, because I haven't seen you for a little bit, and that is that if you realize now that our the calculation of how many people have attended your event is based on who has shown up, who has actually shown up, not just who is registered. You picked up on that change? Yeah, great. Because that's a significant change. If you're talking events where you're doing, I know you're doing regular events, and if you start tipping into 500 or more, then you have to start buying more. But if you don't have that many people and you've got people signing up that don't show up, then they're not counted. So, but if they come to the dashboard, then they're counted, even if they don't go into Zoom. So that's just a reminder for people on that. Cool. Cool. Any other questions? I think we've got to the end, Blue. We did it.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Of course.
Thank you,
we
guys.
Really love,
Wonderful.
We love doing these calls. Thank you. We love doing the calls because it really keeps us connected to how different people are using the platform, and also it puts faces to it for us as well. Like when we are geeking out at all the tech and making things work, it's actually really nice just to see the friendly faces of people that are using it. And so I don't think we're going to stop doing these calls anytime soon. It's great.
Great. I love that. Thank you.
Sure.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right. Bye-bye.